All right, well, it is 12:01, so I think maybe we can get started. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. My name's Melissa Birch, and I'm here with Alexis Troschinetz. We are from the Clean Energy Resource Teams, which is the energy program of the Regional Sustainable Development Partnerships at the University of Minnesota Extension, which is all kind of a mouthful, but that's who we are. And we are actually here today because if you've been in Minnesota for any time at all, you know that we really have two seasons, and those seasons are winter is coming and winter is here. So if you are concerned about winter is here coming soon, we would love to talk to you about how to save some energy, save some money in your home this winter. So taking a look at this, we actually would like to launch a poll. Why are you participating in today's webinar? Is it for personal use, professional use, or both personal and professional use? And getting a bunch of answers there. Wow. And it looks kind of like a mix. Lots of folks for personal use and also for both personal and professional use. So we'll try to touch on a number of different things that are relevant to both of those. And I did want to, advance slides. Our webinar producer today is Rick Meyer, and he will be monitoring chat and also helping with any tech issues that come up, providing some links in the chat to things that we're talking about. So thank you very much to Rick. We really appreciate his help on this. So just to give you a brief overview of what we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about a little bit about who we are and what might be relevant about that to your lives. A little bit about energy burden, and then we're going to really delve into getting to know your home's energy use, how to keep your home warm and comfortable, how to pay for it, and maybe how to take action in your community. We will try to get some time at the end for Q&A as well. So starting off, what is CERTs? CERTs, the Clean Energy Resource Teams, we are a statewide partnership with a mission to connect individuals and communities to the resources they need to identify and implement community-based clean energy projects. So that's kind of, another mouthful. We've got a lot of those. But essentially, we work with communities. We partner with community organizations, with local governments, with utilities, with, a whole host of different community-based organizations to really help people do energy efficiency, renewable energy, and electric vehicle projects. So as I mentioned earlier, we are the Regional Sustainable Development Partnerships Energy Program. The CERTs statewide office is based at the University of Minnesota on the St. Paul campus. And so we work closely with the rest of RSDP on a lot of different fronts. We also have staff in 7 regions around the state. So I'm actually located up in Hackensack in the central region, but we have folks in every region of the state. And we do a bunch of different things, but essentially we provide learning opportunities like today's event or in-person events. Now that we can do those again, that's super exciting. We provide information and practical steps to clean energy. So how can you get from point A to point B on your project? And we have a lot of resources on our website that are really designed to help folks do that. And then we also provide hands-on assistance to organizations of various types that are looking to explore their clean energy options and move forward on projects. And so we don't do this all alone. We do this in partnership with other folks. So as we're going through today's webinar, if you think to yourself, golly, I'd really like to partner with CERTs on something, or I'd love for my city or my community or my faith community or, my program to partner with CERTs on some kind of outreach or moving forward on a project, we would love to hear from you. So you will be getting a follow-up email from us. So you'll have our email address, and we'd love to hear if you have partnership ideas for your communities. And it doesn't seem to want to advance. Let me try again. Oh, okay. So let's talk about energy burden. So this is, we have some clean energy trivia sprinkled throughout the presentation today. We would love for you to put in the chat, is energy burden the energy required to roll a boulder, the percent of income spent on energy, or the cost of generating power? So please, in the chat, let us know, what is energy burden? I'm seeing lots and lots of B, and that is excellent because it is, in fact, the percent of household income that is spent on home energy bills. So the nation's average energy burden is about 3.5%. Minnesota's is about similar to that, but that's an average, right? Like for many households, Minnesota households, they may be spending 20 or 30% of their income on energy. And so we have a map here, darker colors indicate a higher energy burden. And so you can see that especially in some of the more rural parts of the state, we tend to see higher energy burden, also dependent on, so it's kind of dependent on what the energy costs are in that region, and then also what incomes tend to be in that region. So both of those affect those energy burden numbers. So we have at CERTs what we're calling the Under 5% campaign. And the idea behind that is to reduce all Minnesota families' energy burden to under 5% of their income. And so that's kind of where we get into those partnerships and working with communities to reduce energy burden. So there are a number of ways that we think about this. One is getting assistance. So if you're someone who's like, gosh, my energy bills are just really more than I can handle right now, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the programs that are available to help deal with that. Or you may be thinking, how can I make my home more efficient, or work with my neighbors to help make their homes more efficient? We're going to dig into that in depth. And then at the end, we will talk a little bit about some of the tools and resources that we have available if you want to partner with us or work to end energy burden in your communities. So here, let's talk a little bit about getting to know your home's energy use. So a typical Minnesota household uses about 800 kilowatt hours per month. Some are more, some are less. If you're looking at, significantly higher than that, you especially probably have some opportunities to reduce your consumption. Or perhaps you heat with electricity, in which case that's going to tend to be a higher amount. Natural gas consumption varies a lot. Obviously, if you're heating with natural gas or propane, for instance, costs are going to be higher in the winter because you're heating. But it varies quite a lot. And you can see the breakdown in the diagram. Heating and air conditioning make up over half of energy use in Minnesota homes on average, followed by water heating and appliances. Then lighting and electronics are kind of the two smallest. The best place to start for really reducing your energy costs is to get to know your utility bill. So this particular bill is actually one of mine from a couple of years ago. And you want to know, first of all, what is your total usage? In this case, the usage in this particular month, which was December or November, was about 562 kilowatt hours. So that's useful. Then there's this whole bunch of scary stuff that's really confusing to virtually everyone, which is the breakdown of the costs. Now, I'm not going to dig into that today, but we do have a series of home energy guides that provide more information about how to read that part of the utility bill and understand that part of the utility bill and understand which parts of it you can affect and which parts of it you can't affect. So that's, starting point for number one for understanding your home's energy use. One fun little exercise that I did with mine was to look at the spikes in my utility bills and figure out, okay, what was I doing that month that had it to be so high? So you'll notice that first spike, our furnace happened to go out and it took a week or so to get someone in to fix it. And, it was in, I believe, March. So it was cold. So we heated with space heaters. We're going to talk about space heaters in a little bit. But one thing I want you to notice is they're really inefficient. They are not an efficient way to heat your home. So you see that spike number one. Then you see kind of a bump up for air conditioning in the summer. And then a couple more spikes that were December and January. We went all out on holiday lights that year. And they were not LED holiday lights. They were the old kind of holiday lights. And you can see what that did to our electricity bill. So one thing to keep in mind, we're not going to talk a ton about lighting, but if you haven't yet converted all of your light bulbs to LEDs, now is a great time to do that. The cost of LED light bulbs has come way down. They're readily available virtually everywhere. And they will save you a ton of energy, of the portion of energy that you spend on lighting. And then the final increase over there, I added an electric vehicle. And so obviously, instead of driving with gas, I'm driving with electricity. And so my electric bill did go up for that. So that's a fun game to play with your utility bill. You can even, in many cases, your utility may have an app or a web portal where you can track your energy online day by day. In my case, I can get it hour by hour. Those are screenshots from the app that I currently use with my utility. So take a look. It's a great way to know what's going on with your electricity use or your natural gas use. So then I think I will hand it over to Alexis.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. As Melissa pointed out, over half of our home's energy use just comes from home heating and cooling. So this next section is going to really focus in on that, and particularly no cost and low cost measures or actions you can take. I'm going to talk about those first because why not? Let's start out with some easy things, right? The recommended temp for setting your thermostat to during the day is about 68 degrees. Because that's assuming if you're home, you're maybe a little more active, moving around during the day. You can go a little lower at night or when you're away. And that will help with savings, especially if you have, forced air, furnace system or radiators. For window curtains, this is another no cost action you can take. On a sunny day in the winter, our homes can take on a lot of heat just from that solar gain. So keep the window curtains or shades open during the day to let the sun in and warm your home's interior, and then you can close them at night, and it just acts as another extra barrier beyond your window to keep the cold out at night. There are thermostat options. So I was just talking about setting your thermostat to a temperature. If you have a manual thermostat, you can still manually go over and adjust it, a couple times a day to keep at, ideal temperatures for what you need. A programmable thermostat can take out some of that work for you, and you can program in certain days and times and even days of the week. And they have override settings for, companies over, you're going on vacation. And then there are smart thermostats, and these are typically Wi-Fi enabled, so you can access them through the internet, either maybe on a phone app or your computer. And some have an occupancy sensor and have a sense of when you're home or not, and they start with that information, adjusting the temperatures to meet your comfort needs when you're home, and dialing it back when you're not home. Of course, anytime the furnace is running, you want to make sure all windows and doors are closed up. We don't want to be heating the outdoors in Minnesota. We've got enough to heat inside our own homes. Also, if you have, several folks talked about their windows, and there are things you can do with existing windows and not have to pour a lot of money into new windows. You can add weather stripping if they've gotten a little loose in the frame to tighten up and close up any gaps. Weather stripping is kind of like a roll-on foam that you can do with an adhesive. A real easy one is just absolutely making sure they're all closed and actually latched, because when they're locked closed, they're holding the tightest seal possible. If you have storm windows, that's just as good as having, like if you have storm windows and a single pane window, that's as good as having a double pane window. Make sure those storms are installed before winter and are all latched appropriately and they're closed. If you're still having problems with leaky windows, there are these things called window films. You put some tape around the perimeter of the window, put this plastic on, and then use a hair dryer or similar tool to tighten up the plastic film, and you can still see right through it, and it just adds another layer of keeping the leaks out of your home. For your heating system, for say forced air furnaces, either with propane or natural gas, you want to be changing that furnace filter monthly. It can save up to 15% on your heating portion of your bills by just keeping up with that filter and changing it out monthly so that it's not too clogged. But we do need that filter in place, not only for less dust in your house, but it is actually protecting the equipment in your furnace too. It's keeping dust from building up on your furnace fans and such. So that's a good, low cost tip that you could be doing. Melissa mentioned space heaters being very expensive that she saw on her bill when her heating went out and she had to use space heaters. They are very expensive to operate. And in fact, they're a fire hazard. Nationally, space heaters are responsible for more than 20,000 home fires and over 300 deaths each year. So they're just not that safe. And if you find that you are resorting to space heaters because your home is not able to stay warm enough with your full, home heating system set to, and you're having a hard time keeping it at 68 degrees, definitely contact the weatherization assistance program. And they have, tools, programs available to you to work at either weatherizing your home, getting it tightened up and insulated, or even looking at, new furnaces, furnace replacement to make sure that you're getting the heating that you need in Minnesota without space heaters. Another option, if you're using space heaters, is to add additional heating with air source heat pumps. And air source heat pumps can provide heating in Minnesota's winters as well as air conditioning in our summers. They operate both ways, and they provide a nice steady comfort. They're going to contribute to lower energy bills. They can dehumidify in the summer. People who have these have, raved about the quiet operation of them. There's some really great utility rebates right now for air source heat pumps. It's kind of like the next big thing in home energy efficiency. We went through that wave of LED lighting, and now we're looking at getting some additional heating in our homes in Minnesota, even with these heat pumps. And they're very flexible. I'll explain how they can work with or without ductwork. And if you don't already have air conditioning, you could add air conditioning. And again, if you're using like a space heater in only 1 or 2 rooms, heat pumps are flexible in that you can add just some heat to 1 or 2 rooms, depending on the configuration here. And so they work just like an air conditioner. They're the same exact equipment as an air conditioner, but it's able to operate in reverse and bring the warmth, the heat value from outdoor air, even in our cold winters, into the home in the winter and provide heat. So they're efficiently heating and cooling with electricity only. They're not burning up propane or natural gas to make this work. And they provide up to 3 times more heat energy than the amount of electricity being put into it through physics, compression, expansion, and using a refrigerant to hold that heat and bringing it from the outdoors into the home. So that is a little bit about how they work. Why would we think about heat pumps for heating in Minnesota? Well, out of our heating and cooling needs, we have about 2,000 hours that our furnace is running in the winter to provide the heating we need in Minnesota to keep our homes comfortable. But we only have about 300 hours of cooling. And so the choices that we make for heating are really important in how we heat our homes. And they actually make complete economic sense today in homes with that are heating with propane fuel or already heating with electric resistance heat, which is kind of like electric baseboard heaters, because both of those forms of heating are very expensive. And on the right, you can see the annual cost savings. So if you already heat with electricity only, like electric baseboard heat, you could see around 50% savings on your heating bills by switching to a cold climate air source heat pump. And with propane, you might see around 30% savings. And that can vary because, as we all know, those of us on propane, that price fluctuates quite a bit for propane year over year. And even within a winter, sometimes there are spikes in that price. And how do we make sure that these heat pumps work in Minnesota in our very cold winters? We ask the contractor to give us a cold climate air source heat pump, and cold climate air source heat pumps can work efficiently down to 5 degrees Fahrenheit. And at that point is when you would turn to your supplemental heating, which would likely be your existing heating system, like your forced air furnace or even your electric baseboard heat, to make up the difference on those few days or few weeks of very cold weather. And there's just a couple basic setup options for air source heat pumps. The one on the left you may have heard of, it's called ductless or mini split. And you've got this outdoor unit installed on the outside of your house. And then you have maybe one of those, or if you are trying to do your whole home, you might have 2 of the outdoor units. And then you'd have multiple of the indoor units. And a lot of times folks put the indoor units in their living room, the bedrooms, places where you're going to really want that comfort throughout the day and night. And those indoor units tie into the outdoor unit with a set of condenser, a line set, it's called. It looks like a rain gutter on the outside of your house, connecting the two. And that works great if you don't have ductwork too. You can use it if you have ductwork, if you want to add heat in certain places, or if you just don't have ductwork at all, you have radiators or baseboard electric heat. The ductless or mini split is great. The one on the right is the central or ducted version. And this thing looks just like your regular old air conditioning unit. And in fact, that's what it is, but it just is able to operate in reverse and offer heating as well. And that heating gets, that heat value gets pulled into the home and added to the ductwork, just like it would for air conditioning. And your furnace's air handler moves that heat through your home. So that's a little bit about air source heat pumps and how they work in Minnesota. And anytime we're thinking about a big heating or cooling change like this for our home, we want to think about the home as a whole too, the structure of the home. And this is where we talk about weatherization. And there's two parts of that. There's air sealing and there's insulation. Air sealing is trying to plug up all those little holes that are creating leaks and drafts and, you know, bringing cold air in the winter. We seal up those leaks using caulk or spray foam, you know, materials like that. And the graphic on this slide is showing the variety of places that the leaks can show up. You know, as our houses get old and settle, little cracks form here and there, you know, around chimneys, around bath fans or lights going up into our attic spaces. Those can have leaks, you know, joints with the foundation. All of these locations over time can just get a little leaky. So it is something that even if your, you know, home's not too old, you could be looking into this and finding some savings here. And then there's insulation. That's the other part. So once you have a home all sealed up, so I like to talk about it like a winter coat. If you've got a broken zipper and your zipper has a little opening on your winter coat, you kind of want to get that zipper fixed, right? That's air sealing, fixing that up. Insulation is like, ooh, maybe I got to switch over from my fall coat to my heavy winter coat. And the R value is what we look at for insulation. The higher the R value, the better, you know, the more insulation it's going to provide. And in Minnesota, in our attics, we want about an R50, which is almost 20 inches of fiberglass batt insulation. So if you think you have less than 20 inches in your attic, that would be a really good place to start and do something before winter comes along. But insulation comes in all these forms, fiberglass batts, blown in cellulose, spray foam, like what's pictured here. And as Melissa mentioned, the two runner-ups to heating and cooling are appliances and water heating. So I just wanted to touch on that a little bit for saving energy in your homes. So we have another opportunity in the chat to answer A, B, or C. So which label, when you're going to buy new products out there, light bulbs, appliances, lets you know if it's an energy efficient product? Is that going to be Energy Saver, the EPA approved, or Energy Star? A, B, or C? We've got folks putting in some C's, a couple B's. Yeah, it is C, Energy Star. And you'll get to see the logo here on this next slide. That's the logo you'd be looking for. And Energy Star is great because it's not just thinking about energy savings. It's actually running products through tests and performance standards for still high performance, longevity, as well as energy efficiency. So it's very holistic. It's not only focusing on energy savings. It wants to make sure it's a program aiming to make sure you have still high quality products. So appliances, these are a lot of different things in your home. We're talking refrigerators, dehumidifiers, humidifiers, room air conditioners, the kind you put in the window. Those are all considered, you know, appliances, and that you can look for the Energy Star label. Particularly on refrigerators, if you have a very old one, it might be contributing to almost 2,000 kilowatt hours on your electric bill per year, but a new one with Energy Star is going to save you over 2/3 energy savings on just that part. That's amazing. And so, you know, sometimes when a fridge gets really old, it's not performing very well anymore either. So planning in that replacement is a great idea. And like I mentioned, there are lots of different appliances in our homes. If you just are curious and want to know, how much they're using, these kilowatt meters that you see pictured here on the left are available at a lot of Minnesota libraries. So you could check one out and see what the equipment in your house is doing. It's a great, fun, like family treasure hunt activity. And then water heating is that other bigger user in the home of energy use. We use heated water for our showers, our washing of clothes, dishwasher, okay, those applications. And similar to the Energy Star water products, you can be looking for this WaterSense logo and label. So on shower heads or even faucets and those kinds of fixtures, you can look for WaterSense, and it's using the water efficiently. And again, it's aiming for that good performance too. It's not just giving you a trickle of water and calling that energy water efficient. They want to make sure you're still able to take a good shower. You also want to look to set your water heater to 120 degrees, not higher than 120 degrees. Lots of energy savings there, because the water heater is always trying to keep that water heated to that temp. And if you're over a useful temperature, it's really just wasted energy. Not only that, but it reduces your chance of being burned by the water when it's above 120 degrees. You can be harmed by the hot water. Surprisingly, you can actually get really good clean clothes still washing with cold water. A lot of our clothes actually wear better over time washing with cold water, and you've got the energy savings there as well. So play around with that, see which loads you can get away with doing with cold water. Both on the washing machine and the dishwasher, run full loads. Make sure you're filling up and using the equipment's full capabilities every time you run it. And you can, of course, take shorter showers. Back to Melissa.
Thanks so much. So we were at the state fair in the Eco Experience building earlier, this month and in August. And one of the questions that we got just a ton was, what if I want to make my own power? What if I'm interested in solar? And we're not going to dig really deep into that, but I did want to give kind of some starter questions. If you're thinking about solar, what are the first things that you want to think about? And the first one is, do you have a good unshaded south-facing roof or good southern ground exposure? Because if you don't have that, if you've got beautiful trees all around your house, trees are wonderful, not terribly compatible with solar. So that's really question number one. If you're interested in a roof mounted system, is your roof newish? So within the last few years, has your roof been replaced? And the reason for that is that solar panels last a really long time. And 25, 30 years. So what you don't want to do is install it on an old roof and then have to uninstall it completely to re-roof your house and then reinstall it. So you want to make sure that you have a newish roof if you're thinking about solar. And then, do you have enough tax liability to take advantage of the 30% tax credit? So the Inflation Reduction Act that was passed and signed in August did increase the tax credit back up to 30% of the installed cost. So that is available, and so the question is, do you have the tax appetite to access that? That's all I'm going to say about solar right now, but I do want to refer you to our website, cleanenergyresourceteams.org/simple-steps-solar, to really start digging in if that's something that you're interested in exploring more. We have a ton of information on our website, and we're happy to answer questions. So just wanted to put that out there. So then, the big question that we get from folks a lot is, well, how do I pay for this? And that is a really, really good question, because money is a big part of this, right? So we're going to launch into another trivia question. What does EAP or EAP stand for? Is it the Energy Assistance Program, the Electricity Assessment Program, or the Efficient Appliance Policy? I am seeing tons of A in the chat. And in fact, it is the Energy Assistance Program. So if you're, if you or one of your neighbors is really struggling with those energy bills, there is assistance available to income qualified households, including renters. And there are really two different types of assistance available. The first one, the Energy Assistance Program, is financial support for paying energy bills. And so that's usually handled by your local community action agency. In a few places, it's another organization. But you can find your local provider on the Minnesota Commerce Department website, which is listed at the bottom. The other type of assistance, which Alexis has mentioned, is the Weatherization Assistance Program. And that is a program to help reduce energy bills by making homes more efficient. And they take really a whole house approach to reducing energy use and energy costs, to weatherize that home and really reduce bills that way. Again, it's for income qualified households, including renters, which a lot of people didn't know that, but including renters. So again, you can find your local provider on the Minnesota Commerce Department website. Another question that we get kind of a lot has to do with the cold weather rule, because a lot of people have heard something about it, but maybe aren't really sure what it is or how to access it. So what is required for protection under the cold weather rule? Is it apply to a community action agency, call the utility to set up a payment plan, or C, own the building? Seeing lots of B. Lots of B. And in fact, it is B. So in order to be protected by the cold weather rule, which I'm going to talk about right now, you need to contact your utility and agree to a payment plan. And if you do that, what that does is it prevents you from having your electric or natural gas service shut off between October 1st and April 30th. So very important, you are not protected unless you contact your utility and agree to a payment plan that makes sense for your household. So that's kind of the quick summary of the cold weather rule. There's more information, again, I believe, in those home energy guides that we have available. Another important thing to remember when you're looking at paying for things is to check for utility programs. So most utilities in Minnesota offer some kinds of programs or rebates, payment plans. Sometimes they offer free energy efficient items, or additional efficiency programs for income qualified homes. Lots of different programs out there. We have a zillion utilities in Minnesota, only a slight exaggeration, and each one is a little bit different. But first thing to do is to check with your utility to learn about their programs and what kind of incentives or rebates they can offer to improve your home's efficiency. Somebody earlier on in the chat mentioned the Inflation Reduction Act, and that was, as I mentioned, passed in August. And there are going to be a bunch of rebates that are coming in 2023 for a variety of things. So including heat pumps, electric appliances, electric load service center. So you're like your circuit panel, upgrades, weatherization. There is a great tool on rewiringamerica.org that you can put in your zip code, you can put in, a little bit of income information and what kind of home you have, and it will tell you what kind of incentives are potentially available to you, what kind of rebates. So I'm not going to try to dig into each one individually, but know that those are there both for income eligible homes and another set that are for all households. So I definitely encourage you to explore that rewiringamerica.org tool to explore what kinds of incentives and rebates might be available to you. Another source of financing for home energy upgrades are the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency home energy fix-up loans, and also offered by the Center for Energy and Environment. These are available statewide. You need to own and occupy the property. It can be single family, duplex, triplex, or fourplex, but not like a huge multifamily building. Those don't qualify. There are other programs available for those. And it can be used for efficiency, and it can also be used for solar. And those are very low interest loans that are available for that. If you are in a rural area of the state, there are also special loans and grants available from the USDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Rural Development program has these Section 504 single family home repair loans and grants. So that's another option for folks in rural areas to finance improvements to their homes. And there, I'm going to hand it back to Alexis.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. And actually, I was about to interject, but didn't want to. And so I'm going to go back on the rural for a moment here and just mention there's a map that you go into the USDA and can look at, and it's that there's still rural, considered areas rural on the perimeter of the Twin Cities. And it pretty much is only excluding the heart of the Twin Cities, like Duluth, St. Cloud, Rochester. Everything else in Minnesota almost is considered rural, just so you know. So definitely don't write it off right away. If you live in like Marshall, that's actually still considered rural by the USDA's eligibility map, just so you know. Taking action in your community. So this is where we're circling back on those strategies of how to share some of this information with folks in your community, neighbors, family. If you do this in a professional sense, as we saw in the first poll, we definitely welcome you to use these resources from our team. One of them is guides. We've got guides. We have these home energy guides, and they're for single family homes, manufactured homes, renters, landlords, managing properties. They're available in multiple languages. Actually, we have some available in Karen. I forgot to note that here. Sorry about that. But those are all available at this home energy guide tips part of our website. We also have, Rick, if you can add the links in the chat for the Right Light Guide. We have a phone app. It's a mobile friendly website. It's not an app that you have to install, rightlightapp.org. And you can pick out light bulbs that are going to work well for your home. We've got the lighting guide on the right as well on our website. That walks you through learning about the lighting, how much light and the color of light to meet your needs. And then we have a lot of resources on air source heat pumps on our website as well in this 2-page educational guide. And a lot of these guides can be customized. So if you are, part of an organization and want to give these out to your clients or audiences as your own, we welcome you. You get to swap out where our logos are and basically put your logos. So we really want this information out in the world, and we welcome you to use this information. We've got videos up on our website. Some people love learning via videos. We have a whole 4-part video set for mobile homes on do-it-yourself energy efficiency, things you can install on your own. Heat tape installation for water pipes is a big deal with mobile homes for livability and keeping, not having to run the water all winter to keep the pipes from freezing. And then home energy efficiency for homes, learning about insulating and ventilating, that air sealing I was talking about, indoor air quality, and ice dams. We didn't talk about that today, but boy, is that a common thing in Minnesota. There's a great video on it at the bottom of this home energy guide tips website that walks you through the causes of ice dams and your solutions. We've also got slide decks. So again, if you're kind of doing this in a professional sense, or even want to present at a community meeting yourself, a lot of the slides you saw today from us are coming right out of these slide decks for public sharing. And you're welcome to, again, download these and make them your own from our website. We do have a final poll just to kind of get a sense of from this set of actions. You can choose more than one. What's interesting you from what you've heard today, or what actions might you take leaving this webinar? Anything from sharing some of our resources to implementing some of these actions in your own home, like the lighting and the water heater, running full loads. Looks like we got a lot of people motivated to seal up those leaks and drafts before winter. That's a good one. And it's really big on comfort too. It just results in a much more comfortable space. And a lot of folks looking to make sure they're using LED light bulbs as much as they can. That's a great easy thing to do yourself. Just unscrew a light bulb. People are gonna play around with their water heater and double check that it's set to 120 degrees. You can do that just by running the hot water for a while till it's nice and hot out of your kitchen sink, and fill a cup and then measure the water that way with a thermometer that you have in your house. Great. And then we've got folks looking to share some of our resources. 30% of you are looking to share the guides. That's great. Thanks everyone so much. All right, I think we'll let a few more people finish out that poll. You can leave it up a little bit longer, Rick, and I'll start moving into the wrap-up slides, but folks can keep filling out that poll. For today's webinar, if you need a certificate of participation for any reason, when you fill out the evaluation for the webinar, you get to indicate if you need a certificate of completion. Also, if you're a U of M employee and participating in the U of M well-being program, you can get 200 well-being points by attending this webinar, and that the way to indicate that again is through the evaluation for this webinar. And this is the link for the evaluation for the webinar. So Rick, go ahead and end the poll when you have a chance. And I know Rick will be providing, if he hasn't already, the link to the evaluation in the chat for everyone to use. And then there might be a follow-up evaluation sent about a month out from now, just to double check on some of your longer term learnings. We also have your email addresses, and we'll do a follow-up email within the next few days with a lot of the links we shared in the chat and the PowerPoint itself, and just a little follow-up email with a care package of information. This webinar was brought to you as a part of a much broader family development. That's a center within U of M Extension family development webinar series. So we're just one of many, many learning opportunities this fall. There's a whole set of webinars in Spanish. There's webinars around finding balance and later life decision making. There's a bunch all about money, making sense of it all. Ours was part of No Place Like Home. There's going to be others about your home or your community, recovery and health, a whole set on that, and some about nutrition and nutrition planning. And all of these are available through a single link down here at the bottom for the family development webinars. So you can go to one place and peruse them all. And here's a bunch of ways to connect with that, the Family Development Center. And this is how you can find CERTs through Extension at this link as well. But for now, we'd love to take any questions you might have. If we did not tend to them during the presentation, I'm seeing some in the chat and we can do our best to answer them there. I might go back to Windows for a minute because I'm realizing I didn't touch on the whole new investment part, which is windows are very costly. And until they're a good one to see what you can do to repair and improve what you have, and maybe use some of that money investment on things that are going to get you greater bill savings. So while they can be leaky, it's hard to attribute actual bill savings to whole window replacement, especially if you've already got pretty good windows. And when I say pretty good, that would either be single pane with a storm window and they're functional and none of them are significantly broken. Or if you already have a double pane window where there's two plates of glass really close to each other, those are good windows and you might want to just look at how to seal them up more before doing a whole replacement. Would you have anything else to add on that, Melissa? Or that was about, yeah, that's kind of the guidance I would give around windows. Work with what you got if you can. But if you're running into a position where they just aren't closing, they're unsafe or not as secure as they once were, then you're looking at needing replacements. We had a question about solar here. Does it perform the same in winter as in summer? Melissa, I might let you take that one.
Yeah, so typically what we see with solar seasonally is that generally from like November to February, you're going to see lower production simply because there are fewer daylight hours. So you don't have as many hours where the solar is generating electricity. The cold, they actually like cold. But they don't particularly like snow. Usually the snow will slide off within a day or two of it snowing. Occasionally, if you get like freezing rain followed by snow that then freezes to it, then it might take a couple days longer to slide off. But generally in that November to February, you're not going to see the same kind of production. I will say that by the time you hit March, April, you're seeing quite a bit more production because you've got that nice combination of longer days and still cooler temperature, which they really like. So for instance, I have solar on my house and my energy production in March this year was actually the same as my production in July. So you do start seeing some better production in that March, April, all the way into October. You can see pretty good production. So.
And one way to get the snow off sooner, if you don't want to wait for it to melt and drip, is some of us already roof rake with a specifically designed maintenance tool to get the snow off your roof, you can add a pool noodle to the edge of that roof rake and very gently get the snow off of your panels, so you're getting production again. And someone asked about solar furnaces. So that is different than a solar PV electric producing panel. It's about a 4x8 foot size rectangle and maybe about 4 inches thick. And it is installed vertically on the side of a building, and it can offset, some of the heating needs of a place, but not, it can be difficult with the amount of wall space you have to have enough of those units to offset a significant amount, but sometimes it can offset 10-15% of your heating needs with the solar powered furnace, it's called. And some of those are made right here in Minnesota. So, and I think it was actually originally designed here in Minnesota. But yeah, it's a great additional add-on if you have done just about everything else. I would say, we always say efficiency first before solar, because the more efficient you can make your home, the less you need solar to cover your energy needs. You have less energy needs overall, and your solar, you can more affordably cover more of your energy needs with solar once you've become very efficient. So there's a question about improving airflow within a house and helping the first and second floors be more similar temperatures. That's a very challenging and common issue in Minnesota with our hot summers, our cold winters. If you have a forced air furnace, you can try running the furnace fan a little more often in an hour. So you can set it typically on a thermostat, the number of minutes per hour you want it to run. And without, if you don't have a forced air furnace, one way to levelize that out is to think about an air source heat pump, adding a mini split and just that indoor head, probably in an upstairs area. And then you can add more cooling in that upstairs area in the summer and add a little more heating up there in the winter if needed. That's an idea. And I'm trying to look at the more recent questions. Someone asked about pellet stoves for additional heating. Melissa, do you have anything specific on that? She does not. So it's an option. It's something you could look into adding into your mix, especially if you are in an area maybe where you're already heating with propane or electric baseboard and some of those more expensive heating forms. A very common question that we get on air source heat pumps for heating, because you're relying on electricity for heating, is what happens if the power goes out? And we try to remind folks that even a forced air furnace, all those forms of heating require electricity to run. So in some cases, a wood burning option does provide you some of that backup heat that you might need if really everything goes down, but it's a little less common for that to happen. And Melissa and I are always available, even after the webinar, when we get this email sent out. If you do have more questions that maybe we didn't get to, let us know, and we will continue to answer questions after the webinar today. We will be sharing this presentation because you registered. We have your email addresses. We'll do a follow-up email with the registration and the evaluation link again. We'll put in the email, and that evaluation is how you indicate if you want the well-being points or a certificate of participation.
And I think we are at time now. So Thank you, everybody, so much for attending, and we look forward to being in touch with you, through the email. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out anytime. Thanks.